Desire begins quietly, not as longing but as a subtle restlessness, a feeling that something is missing, though you cannot name what it is. You wake up, move through your routine, speak to people, scroll through screens, pursue goals, and beneath all of it hums a low dissatisfaction, not sharp enough to panic you, not loud enough to force change, just constant enough to feel normal. That is how it survives. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this long before the modern world perfected distraction. He saw that misery does not arrive only through tragedy or failure. It arrives through wanting, through the endless pull toward what is not yet here, through the belief that fulfillment lies just one achievement, one possession, one recognition away. You are taught to see desire as fuel, as motivation, as proof that you are alive. But Schopenhauer saw something colder beneath it. Desire is not a companion. It is a condition, a state of lack disguised as movement. The moment you want something, you have already declared yourself incomplete. This is the quiet cruelty of desire. It does not merely promise pleasure, it establishes dissatisfaction as your default state. You do not suffer only when you fail to obtain what you want. You suffer the moment you begin wanting it. Notice how rarely peace appears during pursuit. Even when progress is made, anxiety replaces stillness. The mind leaps forward, calculating distance, imagining obstacles, fearing loss. Desire does not allow you to rest where you are. It keeps you leaning forward, psychologically off balance, always slightly ahead of yourself. Schopenhauer argued that human life oscillates between two poles, pain and boredom. Pain when desire is unmet, boredom when it is satisfied. This is not pessimism for effect. It is observation stripped of comforting illusions. Think of something you once wanted desperately, a goal, a relationship, a version of yourself. When you didn't have it, your thoughts circled it obsessively. You imagined how everything would feel different once it was yours, how life would finally align, and then you got it. For a moment there was relief, a brief lightness, and then something else crept in, restlessness, the need for the next thing, the quiet realization that the satisfaction was thinner than expected, shorter-lived, almost disappointing. Desire does not end itself, it only changes shape. This is why happiness feels elusive when built on wanting. The mind treats fulfillment as temporary, but lack as permanent. Satisfaction is experienced as an exception, desire as the rule. You might object that without desire, nothing would happen. That ambition, love, creativity, even survival depend on wanting. Schopenhauer would not deny that desire moves the world. He would argue that movement is not the same as meaning. The engine that drives life is not concerned with your happiness, it is concerned with continuation. What you experience as personal desire, he saw as the expression of a blind, impersonal force, a will that uses you as a vehicle, not as a beneficiary. It pushes you forward, not so you may rest, but so the process may continue. This is why fulfillment feels strangely hollow. You were never meant to stop, only to move. When you identify fully with desire, you mistake the mechanism for yourself. You say, "I want," without noticing that wanting is happening through you, not because of you. The will whispers, and you obey, believing obedience is choice. This is not slavery with chains, it is slavery with promises. Modern life amplifies this condition perfectly. You are constantly shown what you could be, what you could have, what you are missing, not explicitly, but atmospherically. Images, narratives, metrics of success, each one quietly suggesting insufficiency. Desire thrives in comparison. It requires an imagined gap between you and others, between who you are and who you should be, between now and some idealized future. The wider that gap feels, the more desire intensifies, and the more miserable you become. You may believe your suffering comes from external circumstances, from not having enough time, money, recognition, love, but Schopenhauer would point elsewhere. He would say your suffering comes from attachment to outcomes you cannot control, fueled by a will that does not care about your peace. Even when life is objectively comfortable, desire ensures unease, because comfort dulls stimulation, and when stimulation fades, boredom emerges. Boredom is not peace, it is the irritation of desire with nothing immediate to latch onto. So you invent problems, chase novelty, create urgency where none is required, anything to escape the stillness that exposes the emptiness beneath constant wanting. Stillness is dangerous to desire. In stillness, you may notice that wanting itself is the source of your tension. This is why silence feels uncomfortable, why inactivity feels wrong, why moments without pursuit feel wasted. Desire has trained you to equate movement with meaning. Schopenhauer did not offer optimism as a solution. He did not promise joy if you simply wanted the right things. He warned that wanting itself is the trap. This does not mean life must become bleak. It means relief does not come from satisfaction, but from detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference, as cold withdrawal from life. But what Schopenhauer pointed toward was not apathy, it was clarity. To see desire clearly is to weaken its grip. When you observe wanting without immediately obeying it, something shifts. You begin to notice the pattern, the rise of anticipation, the tension of pursuit, the brief release, the return of restlessness. Once seen, the cycle loses some of its authority. You stop expecting desire to save you. This is not a dramatic liberation. It is subtle, almost anticlimactic, but it brings a quiet relief, the relief of no longer being constantly pulled forward by imaginary futures. Schopenhauer believed that moments of aesthetic contemplation, art, music, nature, offered temporary escape from the will. In these moments, you are not trying to possess, improve, or use. You are simply perceiving. Notice how different that feels. When you are absorbed in something without wanting to extract anything from it, time softens, the mind quiets. For a brief moment, the machinery of desire pauses. That pause is not emptiness, it is freedom. Not freedom in the heroic sense, but freedom from compulsion. Most people fear this freedom because it lacks intensity. Desire is dramatic. It creates highs and lows. It gives life a narrative arc. Detachment feels flat by comparison. Calm can feel like meaninglessness when you are addicted to tension. But the absence of agitation is not the absence of life. It is the absence of unnecessary suffering. You have been taught to romanticize desire, to see longing as depth, struggle as purpose, restlessness as ambition. Schopenhauer dismantled this romance. He saw that much of what is praised as passion is simply unrest in disguise. Ask yourself how often your mind is truly at ease, not entertained, not distracted, at ease. If the answer is rarely, then desire is not serving you, it is consuming you. This does not mean eliminating desire entirely. That would be another desire, another project, another illusion of control. It means changing your relationship to it. To stop treating desire as an instruction and start seeing it as information. You can want something without believing it will complete you. You can pursue without imagining salvation at the end. You can enjoy without clinging. The misery Schopenhauer described does not come from having desires. It comes from believing they define you. When you loosen that belief, something unexpected happens. The world becomes quieter but richer, simpler but deeper. You stop bargaining with the future for permission to be at peace. Peace becomes a baseline, not a reward. This is profoundly countercultural. Everything around you encourages hunger, encourages striving, encourages dissatisfaction as a lifestyle. To step out of this current feels unnatural at first, almost wrong, but notice how much energy you recover when you are not perpetually leaning toward what is missing. Notice how suffering softens when you stop insisting that life should feel different than it does. Schopenhauer did not promise happiness, he offered honesty. And honesty, while less seductive than hope, is more stabilizing. Desire keeps you miserable because it keeps you elsewhere. Always ahead, always lacking, always reaching. When you are no longer ruled by it, you do not become ecstatic, you become grounded. And in a world addicted to wanting, grounding itself is a radical relief. If this reflection unsettled you, that is not a failure. It means something was touched. Sit with that discomfort, rather than escaping it. Let the urge to seek the next thing pass without acting on it. In that pause, however brief, you may feel what Schopenhauer quietly pointed toward, not joy born of fulfillment, but peace born of seeing.